The air in the alien marketplace was thick with strange smells and louder than any place Jack had been before. Bright tents lined both sides of the narrow street, each selling things he had never seen: shining stones that glowed without fire, fruits that floated in the air until someone caught them, and little machines that moved on their own like curious animals. Jack was just a trader from Earth, looking for rare spices to take back home. He was counting the coins in his hand when something small and quick darted through the crowd. He felt a light bump against his side, and before he could turn, a sharp but gentle nip caught his wrist. It wasn't hard enough to hurt more like a playful bite from a child or a puppy. Jack looked down and saw her, a girl. No, not a girl exactly. Her skin was soft silver. Her hair shimmered like water under the moon, and her large golden eyes looked up at him with mischief. She giggled, her sharp teeth flashing for a moment, and then she stepped back. Jack laughed without thinking. "Careful, little one," he said, rubbing his wrist. But as soon as he spoke, the noise of the market shifted. Voices stopped mid-word, hands froze in the air, and dozens of alien eyes turned toward him. It felt like the whole place had gone still. A low murmur spread through the crowd. Jack caught a few words in the alien language, but he didn't understand them. Still, he could feel the tension. They were talking about him, or maybe about the girl's smile faded slightly, though her eyes didn't leave his. From the other side of the market, a large figure pushed forward. He was tall, dressed in armor made from dark plates that looked like they belonged to some giant insect. The alien's face was lined with age, but his eyes burned with something that wasn't anger, more like shock. He stopped in front of Jack and spoke in broken English. "The bond is sealed." Jack blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "The what?" he asked. The elder tilted his head as if trying to find better words. "The sacred bite. She has chosen," he said slowly. Around them, the murmuring grew louder, and Jack could see people bowing slightly toward him. Some looked respectful, others almost fearful. The girl stepped forward and stood close to Jack. "My name is Lyra," she said softly, her voice like music. Jack opened his mouth to ask what was going on, but Lyra shook her head quickly. "Not here," she whispered, glancing around as if the walls themselves were listening. Before Jack could say more, a group of guards in black and red armor appeared. Their eyes scanned him. Then Lyra, then the elder. One of them stepped forward, his voice deep and commanding. "The Hall of Elders requests your presence, both of you." Jack frowned. "Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding," but the guard's hand tightened on the hilt of his weapon. It was clear this wasn't a request. The elder gave a small nod to the guards, then looked at Jack with something almost like pity. "You will understand soon, human," he said quietly. Then he turned and began walking away, expecting Jack to follow. Lyra stayed at Jack's side as the guards led them through the twisting streets of the city. The marketplace noise faded behind them, replaced by the echo of boots on stone. Every time Jack glanced at her, Lyra's expression was unreadable. Not fear, not exactly happiness, something more complicated. "You mind telling me what this is about?" Jack asked finally. Lyra kept her eyes forward. "You are different," she said. "No one expected this." "Expected what?" Pressed. She hesitated, then gave the smallest smile. "The bite," she said simply. "It means something." "Here," Jack chuckled nervously. "Yeah, I gathered that much." But when she didn't explain further, his unease grew. He thought back to the way everyone had stared, the way they whispered like he had done something huge. He had traveled too many alien worlds before, but he had never felt this. Trapped. Finally, they reached a massive building carved into the side of a black mountain. Its doors were twice as tall as any human, made of metal so polished it reflected the clouds above. 2 more guards stood at the entrance, their weapons glowing faintly as the doors opened. Jack caught a glimpse of the vast hall beyond rows of alien figures seated in a circle, their eyes all turning toward him. Lyra's hand brushed against his. "Do not speak too quickly," she whispered. "Words have weight here." Jack's pulse quickened. Whatever this bond was, it was serious, and it had started. With a playful bite, as they stepped inside, Jack realized one thing. He had no idea what he'd just agreed to. But everyone else in this room did. The Hall of Elders was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds of soft blue mist drifted near the top, glowing with their own light. A long path of black stone led toward a circle of high-backed seats, each holding an alien figure wrapped in robes of silver, gold, or deep red. Every pair of eyes was fixed on Jack and Lyra. The guards stopped, just short of the circle. One of them announced, "The Chosen and her bond have arrived." Jack almost laughed, but no sound came out. The way the guard had said her bond made it sound official. Permanent. He glanced at Lyra, but she kept her head slightly bowed. It was the first time he had seen her act humble. An elder in gold robes leaned forward. "You are the human?" he asked, his voice deep but calm. Jack nodded slowly. "I guess so. But I think there's been the sacred bite cannot be undone." The elder interrupted. Whispers spread around the room like wind through leaves. The words, "sacred bite," repeated again and again in their language. Jack had no idea what they meant, but he could feel their weight. Another elder, this one with pale, almost transparent skin, spoke softly. "Do you understand, human? She has bound you to her life." Jack frowned. "Bound? Look, she just nipped my wrist. It was a joke." Lyra finally lifted her head and spoke. It was not a joke. Her golden eyes locked on his. "I chose you," she said simply. Jack felt heat rise in his face. "Chose me? For what?" No one answered immediately. The silence stretched until the gold-robed elder said, "You will learn soon, if you survive the trial." Jack blinked. "Trial?" Lyra stepped forward. "No, not yet. He does not even know our customs, but—" The elder raised a hand to silence her. "The bond is sealed," he said. "If he refuses the trial, he refuses her. And that is forbidden." The words hit Jack like a stone. This was more than a misunderstanding. It was a trap. Yet every face in the circle looked at him as if waiting for his answer. His instincts told him not to argue in front of all these people, so he said carefully, "Then I'll hear the rules first." The elders murmured to each other in their own language. Finally, one replied, "Tomorrow at sunrise, you will face the passage of proof. It is not a fight against one enemy, but a journey through the sands of Shara. If you reach the other side alive, the bond will be recognized by all." Jack opened his mouth to protest, but Lyra touched his arm lightly. Her grip was firm, but not harsh. "Do not argue now," she whispered. "We'll talk later." The session ended as suddenly as it began. The guards led them back out into the city streets. The sun was dipping low, casting the towers and bridges in long shadows. Jack's mind raced. A trial, a bond, and a girl who claimed to have chosen him all because of a bite. As they walked, Jack noticed the way people reacted to them. Some bowed deeply, others whispered behind their hands. A few even looked at him with open hostility. He heard one hiss a word under their breath, one he didn't know, but the tone was sharp enough to guess it wasn't friendly. Finally, when they reached a quieter street, Jack stopped walking. "All right," he said. "Talk." "Lyra, now." She hesitated, looking at the ground, then back at him. "In our world, the wrist bite is a vow," she said slowly. "It says, you are mine, and I am yours. It is more than marriage. More than a promise, it is a soul binding." Jack's stomach tightened. I'm not from your world, Lyra. How was I supposed to know that? You weren't, she admitted. But once it's done, the choice is no longer yours. Mine, it becomes. Ours. He rubbed his forehead, trying to process, and this trial. She met his eyes again. The trial proves you can protect. Me, without it, the bond is only words. With it, the bond is life. Jack let out a slow breath. And if I fail? Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. If you fail, they will take me away, and you will not see me again. The weight of her words pressed against him like a storm cloud. He still didn't fully understand why she had chosen him out of all. The people in that marketplace, but the way her voice cracked on those last words told him it mattered more to her than she would admit. Night fell as they reached a small guest chamber assigned to them by the elders. It was simple stone walls. 2 mats on the floor, a single lamp glowing with soft blue light. Jack sat down heavily. You really think I can do this trial? He asked. Lyra gave a small smile, almost sad. You are human, she said. That is why I believe you can. He didn't know whether to take that as comfort or as a warning. Outside, the city grew quiet under the alien moons. Inside, Jack lay awake long after Lyra had curled up to sleep. His wrists still tingled where she had bitten him. A strange mix of fear and something else he couldn't name settled in his chest. Tomorrow, at sunrise, he would walk into the unknown, and whatever waited in the sands of Shara would decide both their fates. The next morning, the first light of dawn touched the alien city. Turning the high towers of pale gold, Jack barely slept. His thoughts had been a storm images of strange deserts, shadowy creatures, and the weight of an entire culture's judgment. When the guards arrived, he was already awake, sitting near the small blue lamp. Lyra stood quietly by the door, her expression unreadable. She had braided her silver hair back and wore a dark cloak with a golden clasp shaped like a crescent moon. When Jack met her eyes, she said only, "Remember, listen more than you speak." They walked through empty streets toward the Hall of Elders. The city felt different in the morning, quieter. But the few people they passed still stopped to watch them. Some bowed deeply to Lyra, but most kept their eyes on Jack. It wasn't a friendly stare it was measuring, as if deciding if he deserved to walk beside her. The hall's great doors opened with a heavy groan inside. The elders were already seated in their high-backed chairs. The gold-robed elder from the day before leaned forward, his hands resting on the edge of the black stone table before him. "Human," he said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "You stand here by the will of the sacred bite." Forced himself to keep his voice calm. "I still don't fully understand what that means." The elder's eyes narrowed. "It means," he said slowly, "that Lyra has chosen you. As her bonded mate, her protector, and her life partner." Jack's mouth went dry. This was a misunderstanding. The elder in silver cut him off sharply. "There are no misunderstandings in the rite. The bite was given, you did not reject. The bond is sealed." A ripple of agreement passed through the circle. Jack glanced at Lyra, but she kept her gaze forward. Her jaw tight. It was as if she had accepted this long before he even knew it was happening. Another elder, dressed in deep red, spoke next. "By our law, a bonded pair must prove their unity through the passage of proof." He paused, letting the words sink in. "This is not a test of strength alone, but of trust. You will cross the sands of Shara together, face the beasts that live there, and survive the storms. Only then will the bond be recognized by the Great Council." Jack frowned. "And if we fail?" The elder in red's eyes were cold. "Then the bond is void, and Lyra will be returned to her prior claim." The words prior claim sent a chill down Jack's spine. He didn't know exactly what it meant, but he could guess someone else had a claim on her before this bond. He remembered the way she had avoided talking about her life before, and the shadow that had crossed her face when the warlord's name was whispered in the market. Jack's voice dropped. "Who is this?" "Prior claim." For the first time, Lyra spoke, her voice steady but quiet. "The one I was promised to," she said. "A man who takes what he wants and leaves nothing but ashes." The chamber fell silent, the weight of her words settling over everyone. The gold-robed elder finally broke the stillness. "Then it is decided. At first light tomorrow, you will begin the passage. You will be given no weapons beyond what you can carry, and no guides but each other." The guard stepped forward, indicating the audience was over. Jack and Lyra turned to leave, but before they reached the door, the elder in red called out, "Human," he said, "if you value your life and hers, learn quickly. In the desert, hesitation kills faster than the beasts." Outside, the air felt heavier. Jack followed Lyra down the long steps, his mind racing. "You knew about this trial," he said. "Did you bite me just to force it?" Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. "I bit you," she said, her golden eyes burning into his. "Because I saw a man who would not bow to cruelty. I saw someone who could stand where others run." Jack stared at her, searching for a lie, but all he saw was conviction. Still, the doubt clung to him. She had made a choice for both of them without asking, and now their lives were tangled together in ways he couldn't untangle. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Lyra showed him a map of the desert drawn on a thin sheet of woven silk, marking the few oases where they could rest. She warned him about the mirage storms that could strip the flesh from bone, and the sand serpents that could swallow a person whole by evening. They sat in the quiet of their guest chamber again. Lyra ate in silence while Jack paced the floor. Finally, she spoke. "You are thinking of leaving." Jack didn't answer. She set down her cup and looked at him. "If you walk away now, I will be taken tonight. You will never see me again." He froze, the truth of her words hitting harder than he expected. It wasn't just about him anymore. She had placed her fate in his hands with one impulsive hand. Now he had to decide whether to carry that weight or let it fall. Night fell. The city. Lights shimmering like stars below the twin moons. Jack sat awake again, his wrist still marked faintly from her bite. Tomorrow they would walk into the desert, and whatever happened there would decide both their lives. Asterisk, the twin suns of the alien world rose like burning eyes over the horizon. The city gates loomed tall and dark against the morning light. There, shadows stretching across the sand. Jack stood beside Lyra, staring at the endless expanse of desert beyond. The sands of Shara shimmered with heat even at sunrise, as if daring them to step forward. Two guards in black hand-red armor waited at the gate. They carried a sealed chest, which they placed at Jack's feet. Inside were the only supplies they would be allowed: 2 canteens of water, a small pack of dried food, a coil of rope, and 1 short spear. "No guides," one guard said, his voice flat. "Only the bond will lead you." Jack frowned at the phrase, but didn't ask. He had already learned that asking too many questions here often brought more trouble than answers. Instead, he tightened the strap on his pack and turned to Lyra. She nodded once, her silver hair glinting under the suns, without another word. They stepped into the desert. At first, the ground was hard-packed, the wind cool against their faces. But the further they went, the hotter the air became. The sand seemed to cling to their boots like molten dust. By midday, the city had vanished behind them. Swallowed by the haze of heat, Jack had walked deserts before on Earth. But this was different. The horizon bent in strange ways, shapes shifting in the distance. Sometimes he thought he saw mountains, only for them to melt into nothing as they drew closer. "Mirage fields?" Lyra said quietly. "They confuse the mind. If you chase what you see, you will walk in circles until you die." They stopped in the shadow of a rock outcrop to drink water. Jack noticed Lyra's hand shaking slightly as she lifted the canteen. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded but didn't meet his eyes. It's just... This place holds memories, she said softly. I crossed part of it once before. With my family. Her voice faltered, but she quickly changed the subject. We must reach the first oasis by nightfall. They pushed on, the heat pressing down like a heavy hand. Hours passed in silence until Jack noticed something, a faint vibration in the ground beneath his boots. It was subtle at first, then grew stronger. Lyra, he said, you feel that? She froze, her golden eyes scanning the dunes. Then she grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the nearest rocky rise. Move, now. Before he could ask why, the sand behind them exploded upward. A massive shape burst from beneath the surface. A sand beast, its scaled body twisting like a living wave. Rows of teeth gleamed in its wide, gaping maw. Jack barely had time to snatch the spear from his pack before the creature lunged. It hit the ground where they had been standing, sending a shockwave through the sand. Lyra scrambled up the rocks, pulling Jack after her. The beast circled below, its eyes like molten gold, its body longer than 3 market streets. It won't leave until one of us is dead, Lyra said, gripping the rope from their supplies. Jack's mind raced. We can't fight that thing head on, he said. No, she agreed, but we can trap it. They worked quickly, tying the rope between 2 jagged rocks just above a patch of loose sand. Jack baited the creature, hurling a rock at its head. It roared and lunged upward, its mouth wide. Jack dove aside at the last second, and the beast crashed into the rope. The sudden pull unbalanced it, sending its massive head into the soft sand where it sank deep. The more it thrashed, the deeper it went, until finally it vanished beneath the surface, leaving only silence. Jack lay on his back, chest heaving. That, he gasped, was too close. Lyra knelt beside him, her hand on his arm. You fought well, she said. You didn't run. They rested briefly before continuing toward the oasis. By late evening, they saw it, a patch of green and the shimmer of water ahead. Jack felt relief wash over him, but Lyra's expression remained guarded. Don't relax yet, she warned. Sometimes, the worst dangers come when you think you are safe. Sure enough, when they reached the edge of the water, they saw movement on the far side. A group of tall, thin creatures stood there, their skin patterned like cracked stone. They carried long, curved blades and wore necklaces made of teeth. One of them stepped forward, his voice like grinding rock. The oasis belongs to us, he said. Leave, or bleed into the sand. Jack glanced at Lyra. Her hand rested on the short spear, her golden eyes steady. This is still part of the trial, she whispered. But this test is not about killing. It's about showing you will stand your ground. Jack took a step forward, planting the spear into the sand beside him. We'll share the water, he said firmly. No one dies here today. The stone-skinned warriors exchanged glances, then slowly stepped back. One nodded once in silent respect, and they melted into the dunes as night fell. Jack and Lyra sat beside the small fire they built at the oasis. The stars above were strange and bright. Lyra looked across the flames at him. Today, you proved something, she said. Quietly, not just to them, but to me. Jack didn't know what to say. All he knew was that the desert still stretched far ahead, and the trial had only begun. The fire crackled softly under the alien sky. Strange stars blinked overhead, arranged in constellations Jack didn't recognize. The wind whispered across the sand. Cool now, carrying the scent of dust, ash, and dry flowers. Jack sat near the flames, staring into them, his arms resting on his knees. Lyra sat across from him, her silver cloak wrapped around her shoulders. She was quiet, her eyes reflecting the flickering light. They had both survived their first day in the sands of Sharab. Jack could feel something shifting. not just in the desert, but between them. He broke the silence first. "You didn't tell me you'd been here before," he said. Lyra looked up slowly, then nodded. "I was young, barely more than a child," she replied. "My family crossed the edge of the desert, fleeing from the warlord who claimed our village." Jack leaned forward, surprised. "I didn't know." He said softly, "No one asks." She replied, "They only see the bond mark. They see me as someone to be claimed, not someone who ran." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the fire between them like a fragile line. Jack finally spoke again. "So, when you bit me, was it really just for protection? Or did you feel something?" Lyra looked at him, her eyes sharp like glass, but soft at the same time. "I saw a human who didn't look at me like a prize," she said. "You didn't flinch when I came near. You laughed when others would have struck me. That was enough." She reached out and touched her wrist where a faint glow pulse matching the mark on Jack's wrist. "This bond. It's more than law, Jack, it's soul to soul." Jack didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to reject the whole thing. He never asked for it. But another part, a quieter one, liked the way she said his name, liked that she had chosen him for something real, not out of fear or tradition. Suddenly, the fire dimmed. A gust of cold wind rushed through the oasis, and the sky above seemed to twist. The stars blinked out. One by one, Jack stood quickly. Grabbing the spear, Lyra rose. Her hand already on her dagger. "Shadestorm," she whispered. "Run." They dashed toward the rocks behind the oasis pool, diving into a natural crevice just as the sky turned pitch black. The storm hit with a howl-cold, biting wind full of strange particles that sparked in the air like black fire. It wasn't natural, it felt alive from their narrow shelter. Jack could see shapes moving in the storm-long, thin shadows crawling through the wind like smoke with claws. "What are those?" he whispered. Lyra's voice was tight with fear. "Desert shades born from broken bonds and lost vows. They only come when someone doubts the path." Jack swallowed hard. Then, "This is my fault." She didn't answer, but her fingers gripped his arm tightly. The shadows pressed closer, whispering words in a language Jack couldn't understand, but deep in his chest. He felt the meaning, doubt, regret, abandon her. Jack's heart pounded. "I didn't ask for this bond," he muttered, "but I don't want her hurt either." The shadows twitched as if reacting to his thoughts. Lyra leaned close, her voice shaking. "They feed on confusion. Jack, you must decide right now." He looked into her eyes. "I don't know what this is between us yet," he said, "but I'm not running. Not now, not ever." The moment he said those words, the glow on his wrist flared bright, a wave of golden light pushed outward, smashing into the shadows. They screamed and scattered like smoke under sunlight. The wind died, the stars returned, and the desert fell quiet again. Jack fell back against the stone wall, breathing hard. Lyra knelt beside him, placing her hand over his glowing wrist. "You faced the storm," she said softly. "Most never make it past that test." He looked at her, half smiling. "I'm still trying to understand this whole bond thing, but I know one thing. I don't want to lose you." Her expression softened. "You won't," she whispered. "Unless you let go." They returned to their fire later that night, tired but closer than before. There were no more walls between them now. It's not after facing something that could tear them apart. They shared the last of their dried fruit. Lyra even laughed for the first time, a small, real sound that made Jack smile. Tomorrow they would keep walking, deeper into the desert and closer to the final trial. But tonight, for the first time, Jack didn't feel like an outsider. He was still a human lost in an alien land, but now he had someone walking beside him. Not just because of a ritual, but because they both chose to. And that changed everything. The next morning. The desert was silent, too silent. Jack woke up to find Lyra already standing at the edge of the oasis, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The sky was pale blue, and the sand shimmered in soft waves. But something felt wrong. There were no winds, no bird calls. Not even the hum of insects. He walked up beside her and asked, "What is it?" She didn't speak at first. Then she whispered, "I feel it." He's near. Jack knew who she meant that. Warlord, the one she had run from. The one she would be forced to return to if the bond failed. Jack clenched his fists. "How do you know?" Lyra turned slowly, her face pale. The sands remember his steps. The air changes when he comes. You can feel it in your bones. Jack had thought it was just fear speaking. But when he looked out at the dunes, he saw it too, a dark line. Moving through the desert, steady and slow. At first, it looked like wind. But then he saw it clearly shadows, an armored convoy with flags whipping behind them and war beasts the size of cars. In the center of the procession rode a towering figure with golden armor that burned in the sunlight. "The warlord," Lyra breathed, stepping back. Jack grabbed his spear. "Even though it suddenly felt small, we need to run," he said quickly, but Lyra didn't move. "We can't," she said. "If we run, he'll find us anyway, and running now would break the bond before the trial ends." Jack's heart dropped. "Then what do we do?" She looked at him with eyes that were steady despite her fear. "We finished the test. There is one more passage a canyon just beyond those dunes. If we reach it before sunset," she said, "the elders will see that we completed the trial of unity. After that, no one, not even the warlord, can touch me." Jack nodded. "Then we go," he said. Together, they packed quickly and left the oasis behind. Every few minutes, Jack would glance over his shoulder. The warlord's caravan was gaining on them. The desert fought them every step of the way. The dunes grew taller, the heat sharper, the path harder to follow. Lyra stumbled once, falling to her knees in the burning sand. Jack helped her up without a word, slinging her arm over his shoulders as they kept moving. Finally, they reached a wide stretch of flat sand, the last space. Before the canyon cliffs, but before they could cross, the earth trembled. A huge beast slammed down in front of them. Its armor was black and red, glowing with heat. And riding its back was him, the warlord. He stepped down from the beast, the sand melting slightly under his boots. His face was sharp and cruel, his eyes glowing faintly with power. He looked at Lyra like she was already in chains. "You bit a human," he growled. "You insult my claim with this joke of a bond." Lyra stood tall, even though her hands were shaking. "I chose," she said firmly. "That is our law." The warlord's eyes narrowed. "Our law bends for strength," he said, pointing a finger at Jack. "Challenge me, human, if you win. You keep her. If you lose, she's mine again." Jack stepped forward before Lyra could speak. "I accept," he said. Lyra grabbed his arm, whispering, "You don't have to do this, there's another way." Jack looked at her. "I'm not doing this because of the bond," he said. I'm doing it because no one should own you." The warlord laughed, then attacked. He moved like a machine, fast, strong, merciless. Jack dodged the first few blows, using the spear to deflect the heavy strikes. But the warlord's strength was overwhelming. One hit sent Jack rolling across the sand, blood on his lip. Lyra screamed his name, but Jack forced himself up. He remembered something from a survival drill. Sometimes speed beats strength. When the warlord charged again, Jack threw the spear knot at the warlord, but at the sand behind him, it hit a small rock just right, sending up a spray of dust. The warlord turned his head for just 1 second. Jack used that moment to leap onto his back and pull the gold cord from the warlord's armor. The armor collapsed in places, exposing skin. With one final punch, Jack struck the warlord's throat, sending him crashing down, coughing in the sand. The crowd of soldiers behind the warlord drew their weapons, but Lyra stepped between them. The trial is complete. She shouted, showing her glowing wrist. The bond is sealed. The canyon shimmered with light as two elders suddenly appeared. They raised their staffs and called out, "The rite of unity is witnessed and finished." The warlord was dragged back by his own guards. His pride broken, Jack fell to one knee. Exhausted, Lyra caught him before he hit the ground. "You did it," she whispered. Her voice full of awe. Jack looked up at her, half smiling. "No. We did it." The sun dipped behind the cliffs, painting the sky in soft gold and orange. The canyon stood wide and silent, carved by time, shadowed and sacred. Jack stood at the edge, one hand on Lyra's shoulder, the other gripping his aching side. He was bruised, tired, and dust-covered, but alive behind them. The warlord's army faded into the distance. None dared speak. None dared challenge. The elders stood waiting by the ceremonial stone circle carved into the canyon wall. Their faces were calm but proud. They had watched the trial. They had seen the bond tested. Lyra stepped forward, her cloak flowing in the wind. She raised her hand, showing the glowing mark on her wrist, now pulsing brighter than ever before. Jack's own wrist glowed in answer. The light warm and alive, the elder in gold robes spoke, his voice ringing across the canyon walls. "The trial has ended," he said. "The bond has been proven true. Not by blood, not by tradition, but by choice, courage, and unity." Lyra turned to Jack. Her voice trembled only slightly. "You stood by me when you could have walked away," she said. "You protected me. Not because the law demanded it, but because your heart did." Jack swallowed hard. "I didn't come here looking for this," he said honestly. "But I'm not the same man who walked into that market. I didn't know what your bite meant, Lyra, but now I do." He stepped forward and reached for her hand. "I accept it," he said. "I accept you." There was no music, no crowd cheering, no loud celebration. But in that quiet moment, with stars beginning to appear above them, it felt bigger than anything Jack had ever known. The elders bowed their heads. A soft chime rang through the canyon as the bond was fully recognized. Not just by ritual, but by the planet itself. Suddenly, the wind shifted, the sand around them lifted in small, glowing swirls, wrapping around their arms like silk. It was the desert's blessing, rare, ancient, and real. Later that night, after the elders returned to the city and the desert went quiet again, Jack and Lyra sat together near a small fire. They had chosen not to go back yet. They wanted one more night under the stars. One more moment with just the two of them. "I've always felt like I belonged to no one," Lyra said softly, her head resting against Jack's shoulder. "I ran for years, across cities, across stars. But when you looked at me, it was different. I wasn't a slave. I wasn't a prize. I was just Lyra." Jack looked down at her. "You still are," he said. "You always will be." She smiled faintly. "Even if I bite you again." Jack laughed, wincing at the soreness in his ribs. "Just warn me next time," he joked. She reached up and gently touched his marked wrist again. The glow pulsed between them. Not as a command, not as law, but as understanding. "You know," she whispered, "on my world, bonds like this are passed down through generations. Our children will carry it. Our people will tell the story." Jack blinked. "Wait, children?" Lyra smirked. Eventually, Jack shook his head, still smiling. "I came here for spices," he said. "And now I've got glowing wrists, giant sand beasts, and a warrior wife." "You're welcome," Lyra said softly. They both laughed, the sound echoing into the open sky. Far above, stars blinked down like blessings. The warlord was gone. The desert was behind them. The bond once misunderstood was now clear. Not because of a playful bite, not because of law, but because two souls from different worlds chose each other. and that was stronger than anything.